Hey guys, Tarke here, and this is going to be my PS4 PoE review. I basically played exactly until maps. I've done one map, and I've decided it's not quite for me, but there are some things that I do quite like about the system. I'm going to cover everything that I like and dislike about this. I'm also going to do a comparison to Diablo on console, because I've also played Diablo on console quite a lot. But I'm going to start off by doing a few small things. Before we get into some gameplay, I will show off a few maps. But first off, so some things just feel a bit iffy to do, and that is just because I have learnt how to play Path of Exile on a PC. I honestly think that if you're completely new to Path of Exile and you have got a console, you'll probably have an easier time learning it on a console than you will do on PC. For example, my girlfriend has a console. She's done some Diablo on console before. I think she'd have a much easier time picking up Path of Exile on console than she would on PC. There are some fiddly things though, so I need to edit my hideout slightly, so let's edit my hideout. Alright, so when it comes to targeting things, you have a few different ways of doing it. Now, I haven't actually got a clean way of dragging this. You can sort of see with the minimap I can drag it roughly down to where I want to, but I can't walk around while doing this. Let's throw that till roughly there and place it. The way you highlight things, you can use the right analog stick, and if you're stood between two objects, I can then scroll between them, as you can see there. It sometimes feels a bit weird. I don't know if it's based on character proximity. That's something I'll get into later. Some things kind of feel a bit fiddly, but again, it's mostly a thing of I'm used to one setup, so it feels slightly inefficient to me, but you can do everything that you want to do, and it's not too bad. So let's just move you over there, sorry. For some reason, I can't move you. Maybe she's locked on my waypoint. That's interesting. Let me move the waypoint. Oh. Okay, that was weird. That was stuck for quite a while. So yeah, sometimes it gets a bit finicky. So there's still a couple of bugs, but let's just say that we've fully edited the hideout. Let's say that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So before I get into some gameplay, I'm just going to talk about some quick UI things. So to bring up the UI, you press this little center button here, and when you bring up the UI, you get this zoom feature coming in. Now, once you're in the actual menu, it's very easy to swap between, and I find the actual menu navigation is a lot cleaner on console than it is on PC. That being said, I'm not a big fan of this zoom in and out that happens. If you suffer from motion sickness, it's not that pleasant. And one thing which is quite good in PC Path of Exile, if you don't know, is you can fully move and control your character while messing around with your inventory. You can't do that at all. So if I'm being attacked, I have to close my inventory, drop my spells, reopen my inventory, and that just feels a bit iffy. Actual inventory management isn't too bad. So it's grid-based, and you have certain buttons which do certain things. And once you've played for a little bit, you kind of work out exactly what happens with what. So let's kind of show off some stash inventory management before I roll some maps. So to throw things into the stash, you throw things in the stash, and you just drag your mouse backwards and forwards to go across. Using triggers to sort in and out of. If you're used to Path of Exile tool, it's a bit slower, but it honestly isn't that bad. One feature that I really do like, however, is here's a rare item. You just press circle to identify it. It's actually really nice. I think that's a really nice quality of life feature, which would be great to have in the PC version. Just a simple one-button ID system. And it makes selling really, really pleasant. So to sell, you can just hover over everything, identity, boom, 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 throw it over, and we're good to go. Now let's roll these maps, and then we're ready. So you can do like multiple applications. So just click on all of these. That's all good to go. Press that again, and we're ready. So it's all fairly intuitive once you get used to it. A lot of buttons have easy snap between, so you can see you just press square, instantly snaps over to there, and then you just press R1 and it activates the map. All seems pretty solid, right? So, you'll probably notice, but Tarke, why are you using 3 Quicksilvers and 2 life pots? That seems pretty inefficient. The flasks. The flasks are my biggest gripe. The flasks have been my biggest issue when it comes to console in general. So we have no way of changing the mapping of flasks in client. There are like unofficial ways that you can map things, and to see to loot things, you just stand next to it and press X. But I'll get into loot and loot filters in a little bit. So the unofficial way of rebinding your flasks is in the actual PlayStation settings. Carve and Rise have done this. And the reason why you want to rebind your flasks is the default setup is R1, then left, up, right on the keypad, and then R1. Using the arrow keys feels really bad because to press them you need to take your hand off the thumbstick, which is what you use to move your character. So you're like, I want to move this way, and then press this flask, and then do that. It's not clean. I would much rather that the flask defaulted to right analog, which you don't really use that much, because that way you could easily just swing it and activate all of your flasks that way. Now, if you remap your PlayStation controller in the PlayStation settings, you're resetting the like fundamental controller remapping, and the controller controls feel very good in the UI. Like, they feel quite intuitive in the UI, and because you've remapped your controller outside of the game, all of your like on-screen prompts, all of your controls in UI all become screwy because you're not mapping it in-game. We need a way to in-game remap re-keybind. That should just be a standard. Most video games that you do that, I think it's terrible that you can't. Honestly, I think it's ridiculous that you can't do that. So that's been my biggest gripe. Otherwise, I found the gameplay incredibly smooth, and I haven't had too many other issues outside of filtering. So as you can see, looting things is actually very easy if you have the correct loot filter. So you do have loot filters available on console, and I'll just go somewhere safe really quickly and show you how you bring up the options. Go down to options. Very bottom, we have some never sync filters to choose from. Now, never sync filters are better than nothing. Never sync filters are great for the average player. However, if you're used to playing Path of Exile and you set up your own filters, you'll know how important it is to have your own filters set up correctly. So, for example, with Neversync Filter 3 on strict, he doesn't show armor scraps and he doesn't show wisdom scrolls. But he does filter out a lot of the useless rare items that I don't want to be seeing. Now, if you need armor scraps, I need to jump down to semi-stricts, and then I'm seeing a bunch of trash. So, we come back over to here, you can now see that the way that I pick items up is it will like auto focus on currency first, and then it's highlighted as glorious plate, so then I need to use this analog stick to then scroll between the different things that I want. And when there's lots and lots of things on screen, it can be a bit fiddly selecting exactly the right thing. So as I said before, the looting feels great when you have a amazingly strict filter set up, but as soon as you get a bunch of items on the floor, that's when it becomes really messy, and a lot of the efficiency really goes completely out of the window. So I wish there was a way that we could edit filters. As far as I'm aware, this is the exact same system they have on Xbox, and they have zero way of editing filters on Xbox, so it's incredibly unlikely you will ever have a way to edit filters. So for people new to Path of Exile, for the average person, it will feel fine, but if you're someone who's experienced with PoE, that will be something which will really kind of hold you back. And honestly, it's really just the filters and the flask lack of remapping are the only two things we're really holding back console Path of Exile for me. When it comes to actually playing on a controller, it feels pretty smooth. So I decided to go for a Vortex Trickster. I figured it would be a pretty nice build to play on controller. I haven't got a freeze removal flask because of the flask thing I talked about earlier. I'll talk about flask a bit more in a second. Because you can just run around in circles and drop down, things, and it's clean. So you're like, okay, but Tarke, what's this flask thing? Why are you using 3 Quicksilvers? As you can see, I can spam press R1 and it will trigger all of my Quicksilvers. Same with I can spam press L1 and it will trigger all of my flasks. One really cool feature that console has is it's called smart flasking. So if you have multiple flasks of the same type, you can just spam one button and it will activate it once you've used those out. So if you have multiple life pots, if you have multiple Quicksilvers, it feels great, because I can just be like, oh shit, I need to heal. Spam. So it's great if you use duplicates, but that's not a very efficient way of playing Path of Exile. So it feels good. Like, a lot of the things for console PoE feels good for inefficient use, but feels bad for not very efficient use. So let's go for a quick bit of trading. Let's sell some items. And ID. Didn't get anything good. Sell. Set trade. Nice and quick, right? All seems pretty solid. I want to show you a couple of the issues that I have in town, and then I'll run a couple more maps, because there are a few weird things with towns. So, load screens. How good, how bad are the load screens? A few things that I should mention. I'm on a PS4 Pro. I'm not using an SSD. I'll just cycle through a couple of zones. Some zones feel better slowed than others based on like the size of the zone, the amount of users in there. Obviously, there aren't really any users using microtransactions, but this handy little player here, this little Templar Swakali, highlights something which does actually irritate me a little bit. So, my character is focused onto this guy. So if I press X, we get a view profile and we get a trade thing pop up here. Now, going back to using this analog stick, that's how I can highlight on and off of things. So if I want to highlight the waypoint, I can do that. If I want to highlight him, I can flick between the two. If you have players stood on top of the waypoint, you can often end up in a scenario where your controller is like auto-selecting players, and when you have lots of people in a town, it can be very frustrating. Anyone who's played World of Warcraft, you can see again it's defaulted to this guy, and now it's showing me his profile. I didn't want to see his profile, and it's really frustrating, and it's like you got to go through all these loading things, and it's annoying. It's similar to when you get a bunch of people standing on top of a vendor or a quest giver, so you can't see the quest giver. But the load screens are actually, honestly, a lot better than I was expecting. One other thing worth noting on that is I am playing on a PS4 Pro, but I'm doing so with remote play. Basically what I'm doing is I'm streaming my console to my PC since I haven't got a capture card. Again, you can see it's defaulted to this guy, not defaulted to the waypoint. So I need to like walk away, walk back. I find that really frustrating. So I'm streaming through my PC, and then I'm streaming again from my PC to you and what you're seeing in this recording. So all the footage you're seeing has been compressed twice. Graphically, I found the game pretty solid. There's been 1 or 2 zones, however, which really don't look too great, and it's because we have forced dynamic resolution. So dynamic resolution, the way it works, is it's trying to hold the game to a set FPS, and so we always have good FPS. It will scale the graphics down so the FPS is solid. That can lead to some zones looking really ugly. The most obvious zone was Comb's Dream, and that's because it's a very large zone with a lot of lava effects on it. So this here, you can see it looks pretty rough, and I'm getting a bit of screen tearing as well. I'm not sure if that recording's picking it up. Again, load screens aren't that bad, it's just dynamic resolution. When you get lots and lots of stuff on, it looks very potato made. Like, that isn't a very pretty looking game, is it? Like, let's be honest. Other than that though, all the textures have been pretty consistent and not too shabby. I haven't done super crazy, like, beyond fully sextant mapping, so I can't comment on that. But from what I have seen of people mapping, Carve has done a fair bit of mapping at this point. It seems mostly good until the builds get really, really bombastic, and then it can start to get a bit iffy. One other thing I'll quickly show you before I get back into maps is how the trading system works. Now, you can only trade within towns, and there is a trading system. You cannot trade in Hideout, which is mildly annoying. And we have these trade boards that you talk to, which I'll show you. So, here we have the trade market. You press X, and the way you search for items is you press square to search. You can't search for specific unique items. So you can't search for a certain name. You can only search for the base. So let's say I want to search for the Gull helmet. I'll be searching for a helmet, and it is a Raven mask helmet. So I now have to scroll through this entire list to find what it is. Now, if you're someone who knows Path of Exile very well, and you know exactly what you want, and you know what all the bases are, then it's not too bad. You can see there aren't any Gull helmets for sale, but let's just have a look at what we have got offered to us. Someone's selling an unidentified rare Raven mask. That could be pretty good. That's a pretty nice one. Live double res, a white falling, and another unidentified rare. So not too interested in any of those. Let's go back. Then let's try and find a tabula rasa, for example. So if you're looking for a simple robe, and there aren't any tabbies for sale. But you know, you can kind of see what people are kind of sell things for. What's another item that we could maybe look for? Let's see, is there a Sadist garb? There won't be any Tinker skins or anything like that on, but let's have a look, see. So it's a bit cumbersome. It's a bit cumbersome. Don't mind me. Sadist garbs. Oh, there's actually a couple of Sadist garbs on. So fractured items, obviously in Synthesis League, I don't really know how people are meant to be collecting certain specific mods on specific items. It's pretty rough. So for example, let's say I wanted to buy a wand with cold damage overtime multiplier, since I'm playing a Vortex build. The way I'd have to do that is search for all wands, look through each individual one, and try and find one which happens to have the mods that I want on it. And then from that, then make an offer. So you can see that some of them have a set buyout price. We'll have a little look-see to see if we can find one which would be decent for my build. If so, we'll then buy it, and then we can show you how that kind of works. But enter keywords here. So let's see if it'll let me enter a keyword. Let's have a look-see. How can I actually type into that? So some of the options. What does that do? Ooh, okay, highlight items. Typing's coming up. Okay, let's search cold. Since I've got this remote playthrough in my PC. Ooh, okay, so we can do that. Okay, so that is something at least. So that will highlight everything with cold. So that's something. One Exalt. That's a bit fat for my liking. Let's go over to the next window. 22% non-element chaos damage overtime multiplier, 1 fusing. It's pretty nice for any chaos boys out there. Not good for my build. I'm really curious to see if we could find cold damage overtime multiplier. Non-element, another chaos damage overtime multiplier. Some people might kind of like this very old school approach to looking for mods. It's very reminiscent of OG Path of Exile. Having to hunt through the forums, but when it comes to quick usage, obviously not the best. So most people will most likely end up playing mostly SSF based. Another non-chaos element overtime multiplier. Let's see. 30 chaos or episcators. Ooh. And since we have a very limited demand, obviously the price of items is pretty skewy. 130C. And alright, this is time. I feel like I've overcommitted to this, but I'm really curious to see how this works. If not, I'll just purchase a random spell damage wand just so you can see how it looks. Another non-chaos. Cast speed, cold pen. But non-ailment chaos damage time multiplier. Okay, the last page. Come on. Cold damage every time multiplied. 2 chaos. Okay, so I'm gonna buy that. Let's just see if there's a better one. I have got 2 chaos in my inventory, so that can be the one. I've got a sense of pride and satisfaction for an item well hunted. So I'm gonna make an offer. I'm gonna send, and then we press this, and that's submit. Okay, I've requested the item. And hopefully he's there, and hopefully he accepts it. We might need to wait a couple of hours. So, while we wait to see if maybe this guy lets me buy this wand off him, let's talk about the things that I do like about this, and then we'll do a couple more maps. So, as I mentioned, the load screens have honestly been a lot better than I expected. I think the longest load screen I've had has been about 15 to 20 seconds, which sounds terrible, but I imagine that the console performance is better than the average Path of Exile PC player's performance. I've had a lot of people in my chat actually say that this seems smoother than what they're playing on. I think if you have a very low-end computer, or you don't have a computer at all, honestly, if you were playing this on PlayStation, you'd feel good enough. A few of my Xbox PV viewers have said that this seems to be much faster load screens in comparison. And again, this is not on an SSD, so if you had a PS4 Pro, which I do have, but with an SSD, you you can maybe get some really, really spicy load screens. The gameplay itself, ooh, what happened? I dropped my controller. Sorry. What? How do I get the one back up? Sorry. I find some of the controls a bit fiddly. The gameplay feels a lot smoother. I don't think that guy's coming back to me. It feels bad now. So we'll run another map. The gameplay feels mostly good. I done my Master's Lab. All the labs felt fine. The traps felt fine. The way that movement skills work is basically max range in the direction you're facing. So it will just flame dash maximum in the direction I'm facing. Pretty snappy. The way that targeted abilities work, this is a bit iffy. So for my Cold Snap, which is a ground target ability, basically just doing it in the direction my character is facing, and if there are monsters, there's a soft lock-on. If you hold down L2, that's the force stand still option. I imagine melee abilities like Cleave, Reave, Tectonic Slam would actually feel really, really good on console. Same with like Molten Strike. You can just force stand still, attack right in front of you. Anything which is just a base AoE, like a 360 around your character or set cone in front of your character, feels great. Stuff like Blight, Stormburst, Divine Ire, that all feels great. I tried it a little bit while leveling. Vortex feels good, just dropping at your feet. Winter Orb obviously feels amazing. Stuff like Freeze Pulse. Anything which doesn't really require aiming will feel great. Very fiddly ground targeted abilities, such as, for example, Stormcool, I can imagine that feeling pretty rough. So that's all pretty good. Identifying items feels a lot better, as I showed you. The way that you just press one button, you don't need to mess around with actually picking up scrolls, feels great. There's a auto-leveling gem feature, which a lot of people really picked up on. Auto-leveling gems feels pretty decent. So by default, gems will automatically just level for you. You might see that happen throughout this video. And you can disable this by just highlighting the gem in your gear, pressing triangle, and it turns it off by default. And then if you want to re-enable it, then you just... so as you can see, if you look at my gloves, they've got the 3 lock icons next to it, and that's because each socket has been disabled auto-levels for my cast and damage taken setup. And yeah, the way the sockets work, you press circle, you can see different links in here, and it's all fairly intuitive. The R2 swap, so you have got, oh, offer accepted, I got the wand. Right, how do I get the wand? I haven't actually done a trade in PoE yet, so I guess I need to go back to town and talk to the board. Well, that's exciting. So as you can see, I've got my main abilities by default on square, triangle, circle, and X. And if I press R2, that's where my auras are. So yes, I need to go back to the board. Live gameplay review. So this is why it's a bit annoying that we don't have a board in our hideout. The fact that you have to stop what you're doing, run back, talk to the board to claim it. Oriath, I probably should have loaded into a different town. It's a bit of a long load screen. Where is the board in Oriath? Here it is. Send offers R1. How do I pick it up? Pick up. There you go. And I now have the item. Which I'm not actually going to use right now because I need to swap all my gems around for it, which would suck. But actually, I guess I can just quickly throw it. Right. So that would be, we'd want to blacksmith it up, apply it. So that's how repeat applications work. We then want to take my jewelers. 3 socket. Juicy. Easy as. And now we want to equip it in my offhand. And then we want to take the gems out of this, so sockets. This is my Vol Cold Snap, which goes off the screen, which is slightly unfortunate. Pick up the gem and store it there. Go back down, sockets, pick up gem, drag it over. So you can see it like soft locks. Ooh, I pressed the wrong button then. It's a bit fiddly, but it's manageable. Mostly it's just my teething problems. So again, if you're used to PC, this is a lot slower. But if you've never done this before, not too bad. It's definitely manageable. Stash. Okay. Right. So we've got 2 1s with the 20% multiplier on there. Back to Hideout, another load screen. Back into the map, another load screen. But again, none of the load screens are too bad. Not too bad. So the action bar thing, the quick swap, I quite like this. It's not my ideal setup, but I wish we had a feature like this on PC. I'm actually a little bit jelly of it. And as I said, the looting, when you have the correct filter, I actually much prefer looting on console than I do on PC. It feels really good. Now also, you've just quickly seen, my bars have been messed up because we've swapped my wondrous rounds. So, the way that you change your keybinds, press that down, this highlights, press X, I need to scroll on through, I need to find my cold snap. Cool, my vol cold snap is still on X, that's good to go. So, the quick trigger is actually not too shabby. I kind of wish we had something like that on PC. I would like to have more control, as always. The more buttons, the more keybinds, always the better. But, you know, can't complain too much. And again, picking up items is actually really easy when you have the correct filter set up, if you can get the correct filter. Now, the interesting comparison for me is comparing this to Diablo. Because, as I said, I've also played quite a bit of Diablo on controller, and I actually find Diablo 3 on console, in my opinion, is much more enjoyable than playing Diablo on PC. I would not say the same thing, however, about Path of Exile. So I think the reason why Diablo feels so good on a controller compared to a PC is all of the things that I like about Path of Exile on a controller, like the looting. It works. But as soon as you have too many buttons, as soon as you have too much of an interface, and it starts to get a bit fiddly and a bit janky, it's when you have to do too many little micromanagement things. So if Path of Exile didn't have flasks, Path of Exile would feel absolutely beautiful on a controller. But it's just with the way that it's been fundamentally designed, there are just a few things which is holding it back a little bit, in my opinion. Because of Diablo's simpler construction, the fact it has far less micro with like rolling flasks, rolling maps, you spend a much less time in UIs. I feel like it runs much smoother. And because of the whole loot system and everything, again, I just feel like it works a bit better. So if you were to say, Tarke, you could only play one ARPG for the rest of your life on console, we've thrown your PC in the bin, which would you go for? I think I'd probably pick up D3 first. That being said, I played D3 on console for the first time only a couple of months ago, so it had a lot of time for iteration and multiple patches, whereas this is the very first Path of Exile patch on PlayStation, so there could be improvements to come. I wouldn't expect full remapping, I wouldn't expect filter options, but if they did come, I would prefer it. So overall, I would say that console PoE, worth trying. I wouldn't buy a console just to try it, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
Ready to revisit the
Yeah,
park?
it's pretty decent.
Time to go.
I don't know if I mentioned it, but my playtime to get to Crash. My playtime to get to maps was roughly about 10 hours or so, which is about standard. And I can now do my favorite joke. That's the only time you're gonna see a Slayer. I've made that joke 7 times now, and I have had 7 crashes all the way through till now. But yes, that is my amazing PS4 review. It's actually not too shabby, but it's a little bit shabby. But try it. You might like it. I do find the the core fundamentals on a controller, really satisfying, but it's just not quite enough. Actually, one important thing that I didn't mention and really is worth mentioning, you cannot link currently your Xbox or your PlayStation account to your PC, meaning any microtransactions, any stash tabs, anything you own on PC will not carry over. That is another very big reason why I'm not looking to spend much more time on console, because even if I really did enjoy the core fundamentals, I couldn't justify the cost of having to purchase all of my many years of MTX again. Because, no. Just no. The passive skill tree feels fine. Everything feels kind of fine to utilize. Just PC feels a bit smoother. And I don't think that's really a surprise to anyone. But yes, I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Level 69, by the way. Bye-bye.